Good evening. You are listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight, I have with me from the Great Midwest, RDV. We are recovering the 1988 fifth movie in the Dirty Harry series, the Deadpool, with a heroin, speedballing Jim Carrey, who makes a lot of mug faces, copious amounts of a young new group at the time, starring a guy named Slash called Guns N' Roses, which I think is interesting, and some weird 80s foolishness in here that make for a very short, quick, entertaining movie that I don't know how good of a Dirty Harry movie it is, but I think it's a hell of a lot of fun,
Oh,
and we're going to talk about some of those things
I'll
tonight
say
and
this.
much, much more. What about you, RDB?
My opinion changed on this a little bit because I remember it being, this is kind of like bad. But then I completely, as I said, there's a scene in this movie towards the end I completely forgot about, and that just turned my whole entire opinion about the movie around again. Because there's a few scenes like this movie starts. I don't want to say how it starts out, but it's basically just follows the same format as the past ones.
No shock there.
Yeah, with the robbery, new partner. It's it's got a little bit of comedy in there, and there's a girl that likes him, and yeah, it's whatever. But towards the end, though, I honestly forgot who the killer is, and that's what really helped me for a lot because I'm like because I thought it because without saying who the killer is, I thought it was one guy. Then it turns out it wasn't that guy. Because I was so dead on. I'm like, wait, because I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. It's got to be that. And then I'm like, wait, it's right. It wasn't him. It's like, so it actually was it was almost like a fresh watch for me again. I mean, I do remember there's a certain scene here towards the end with the car chase. I remember that. As soon as I saw that, I was like, dude, yes, I popped because that's probably one of my favorite things I've seen. And I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that car chase scene with the bomb car and stuff. That was in the Batman animated series, which happened in 1991. I saw that was one of the episodes. Someone was being chased and killed with explosives, planes and cars, remote controls. So I'm thinking like, my buddy he has remote control cars. I'm thinking like when we used to play with those, and there's a scene here where the car pops a wheelie, Yep. And I'm thinking, I'm suspending my belief because this is a bomb inside this car, and it's going over jumps. Oh, but let's dive into from the beginning. I'll let you take that away with that.
The first thing I noticed with this is, 1988. I think the first one was 71. So here we are 15 to 20 years later. We still have Clint Eastwood, and it's the same format. So part of, I think, the joys of watching these films is after maybe the second one, you realize that, okay, it's going to follow a certain format, and you're okay with it. And part of the curiosity and attractiveness of the Dirty Harry franchise is, how are they going to keep the same familiar franchise, but tweak what it is that they do? And so in the opening credits or whatever, again, it's got that synthesizer saxophone sound. I made sure that Leo Schifrin was doing the music for, like he did on most of the other ones, but it's definitely an 80s sound to it. And again, this is a movie that, to me, it's not a Dirty Harry film. It's an 80s film that has Dirty Harry in it because the 80s is a special decade where things have their 80s polish on it, and here you have that. So we get a shot that I had forgotten just how popular it seemed like it was starting to be in television and movies at this time here in the 80s. Currently, in today's cinema, we see a lot of those wonderful drone overhead shots and all that. It's used to set up the landscape and everything, and they're beautiful. And I think a lot of people in today's film world use it because, well, that's what everybody else does. Well, in the 80s, one particular type of shot that was very good was where you see a crane shot, or really it's more of like a plane flying like across a cityscape, and you see it getting really, really, really close to all the buildings where you could see all the office things. And I'm like, oh crap, I'd forgotten how 80s that is as far as a shot. But yeah, we see a satanic looking thing in somebody's office with a bunch of notes and stuff. And of course, one of the best things ever in film is, I don't even know what you call it, where you have like the news playing in the background or the radio, but whatever's going on there is pertinent to the plot. We get that a lot in this movie.
I just want to pause you though. I thought this was Deadpool. I mean, I got my Deadpool shirt on and everything,
Well, this is a much better Deadpool.
Oh, is it? Are you sure?
Without question. Without question. The other one's a
I want them combined now. I want Deadpool and the Deadpool combined.
Well, being involved in the Deadpool for many years, it was interesting to see this is the first time we really kind of saw it and being used as a device.
In the film. Yeah, because everybody's have had that. The joke is, even the partner says like, yeah, they always die in 3 celebrities, So people are always making bets on who's gonna croak next, Is it
Well,
morbid, dark? Yeah,
it's
but
a thing to
like
do. Yeah.
it's yeah. Well, it's just like Oscars. Like say, is this year Leonardo DiCaprio going to get an Oscar? No, he's not. And then there's always that one person who always wants to bet against, you know. And when he got that one Oscar, somebody won a huge bet.
Omarani's asking about the Deadpool betting on how long Callahan's partner will last or something else. That's kind of a joke. It's obviously just a list of celebs, and Harry happens to be on it.
Yeah.
First two notes that I actually wrote down here, trying to go through in order, is rat tails, because that's
Yes.
an 80s thing. Not
Yes.
which is not to be confused with a mullet or anything else. It's a rat tail, which really offended me and still does to this day. And the second thing is, wow, the guys chasing Harry, their guns sound like wimpy stuff. This is just a bad excuse for him getting set up, which he should never been in this position, for the hitman to hit on him. I thought this opening gambit actually sucked. What did you think of that?
The opening gambit where they're chasing him in the car and they're finding a machine gun out there. I'm thinking like, this is setting up where he's just going to kill the bad guys and get yelled at. It's typical. It's typical formula they do. Because literally all they had to do is just shoot the gas tank while he's on the side and blow up the car. But no, he's got to look in, and this is where you get to hear the gunshot. Boom! You know,
it's wimpy. And these guys are pros. They're wearing suits.
No,
they're supposed to do better. 80s movies get really stupid.
You've never heard of like the Italian like mafia guys, the goons, you know, the guys are like think they're tough guys, and they're the ones that usually get shot and killed first or run away. Yeah, it's disposable goons. It's a trope that's been in throughout Hollywood, even in comic books. You know,
did not need that in Dirty Harry. It makes it seem silly.
Yes and no. I mean, you need expendables, so these guys are expendables, and then like I said, like there's certain things you need, and though we had to look at it this way. Every guy that's in these things that's going up there and an actor, like they're like, you know, I love the stunt scenes. You know, I think about, okay, how did they do this? They got the car on the side, you know, and how the guy has to jump back. Even the guy who lights himself on fire, that's a stunt man.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like the fact they're able to do this stuff, and nobody complains about it, and nobody, you know, it's cool. You know, because I don't think you'll ever see well, maybe not so much. Some people light themselves on fire in movies. I'm sure that still happens. But
the third note I have written, and I want you to take it from here, is I've seen every face Jim Carrey can make in the next 2 minutes, because
that was
they
cringe.
must have paid a fortune to get Welcome to the Jungle, because it cuts to Jim Carrey doing a video and he gets out of sync, which I think is a good bit of acting. And then a younger Liam Neeson comes in and starts reading them the right act. Yep. And I also wrote down rat tail here too, because again, I'm still offended because I saw a different rat tail earlier. But Liam's getting around in the movie full of it, and I'm like, wow, I remember him from Excalibur, movie we haven't talked about yet here on the Xtreme Movie Show, and that was about 5, 6, 7 years earlier.
Yeah.
And so I knew him from then. But this is kind of interesting because videos were so huge starting in the early 80s with MTV.
Horror movies.
This is an appropriate thing. Yeah, and they're just filming one in a meat locker, which sounds cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, cool.
What was your take on Jim Carrey's involvement?
My thing is, is this his first debut, like in a big movie? Or is this like a second or third?
But yes.
Because I remember Rubberneck, but that wasn't really a big movie. That was like
He was in a vampire movie, I think, the year before.
Once Bitten,
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that was 87.
So this, well, even then, like, this is different though. This is I've seen Once Bitten, and this, the way he does the facial expression was not really done in the other movie. Right. This is a new thing that so the fact is that it didn't do much for me, because I've seen The Mask, I've seen Jim, I know Ace Ventura, so I've seen that. Now now I put myself in the shoes of someone who's first seen this for the first time back in the 80s, never seen those movies afterwards. He's just a guy, you know, going on there. It kind of looks silly, but it also, like, I'm thinking this is like an 80s movie, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't do a bad job.
Yeah, it's not. It's actually
really
it sells it, so it does work for the role. You know, it's supposed to be like a depraved, you know, the whole thing is Welcome to the Jungle, trying to do that, you know. So it does work out, and then you find out, like, after the guy cuts, he says you're on sync. Then he finds out that he's actually strung. He's high. You know, he's in his fix, you know, as far as heroin he's doing, you know. And yeah, and that's where it sets up the scene where you know, this guy, you know, I forget what it was. His name's supposed to be Shane something. Liam Neeson's character. And basically, it's just a motive, like, because like the next scene is like after they go home in a trailer, you see Jim Carrey shooting up, and then someone coming in and then killing him. So it's like they're already trying to like make you think who's going to be the bad guy.
Yes, who done it?
Yeah. So yeah, throughout the movie, they're really trying to make you believe it's the director. And like I said, I'm not gonna say who it is.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you probably shouldn't say who it is at the end.
I won't.
I'll just say
I'll
just say the guy. I'll just say the guy gets harpooned.
Yeah, no, he does. He does.
Yeah, and that's all you need to know about the end scene of the villain. But yeah, they really. This is my second time watching it, and I was telling you before we went live. I remembered like, oh yeah, isn't so and so? I'm like, wait, no, it's not. It's not that person. It's the other person. It's like, it was almost like a fresh watch for me.
Yes.
Except for the scene, like I said, the car chase with the remote control cars. As soon as I saw that, I instantly remembered everything else. But
it's one of those forgettable kind of movies.
Yeah.
That you go, oh yeah,
which is
I've
good.
seen this.
It is good though. That's usually we say that's bad, that's forgettable, but no, that's good. When you want to go watch a movie again, you can re-enjoy it.
Well, it's a movie that, like Liam Neeson, his character's name is Peter Swan, which is
that's
really
what it's
almost
Swan.
a
That's
porn
what it
name
is.
because Peter was such a popular porn name in the 80s. I'll just leave it at that.
I didn't know that, but thanks
I'm
for
sharing that with you because we're talking cinema here. Okay.
It's
now Liam is set up. Mr. Swan is set up to be that, and of course we know it's not going to be that, but he gets an Asian partner, and there's of course the setup that we always get with something, whether it's the coffee shop or whatever. And then here it's in Chinatown, and it's related to the plot where people are being killed off of this list, and Harry happens to be on it, and so they're trying to figure out who's got this list, where did it come from. It's done by a typewriter, and it's not the IBM Selectric, which is the model du jour in the 80s. So I'm a little peeved at that too. But the stunts in here were good, but they were very cheesy by 80 standards. Like when Harry's shooting everybody up in Chinatown saying, "You forgot your fortune cookie," you could see the guy literally jump behind into like the koi pond, and the other guy literally stands and just jumps through the window. Like, this is kind of piss poor editing, and so I'm kind of like almost not liking it because it's like 80s TV to me.
What is really cool about this movie is it does stand out from the other ones, though, even though it has some of the same formula. The fact that his bosses like Harry because the press likes Harry because he put away this big mob boss.
That's true.
Yeah, so
it's a different angle.
Different angle, because usually they hate him. Remember he was kicked off of Homicide, but now he's back. Apparently he's back on Homicide. After I guess you saved the mayor, you're allowed to be back, get promotion back to Homicide. So yeah, and I want to touch on that because this guy from the very beginning, this gangster, even though he's in prison, he's sending out hits, on Harry. So what does Harry do? Harry's like, well, I can't put up with this shit because they tried to kill him again with him and his the reporter chick. I forgot who the actress is, and I apologize. But they go on a dinner date and they go to this restaurant. And what's interesting about this is the first time I saw anything like this, where an elevator on the outside and it takes you up to the building inside. Because usually, so it's really fancy. And I remember this part when I was like, oh, something's gonna happen in the elevator. And at first, nothing happens. They go up. It's when they're going to come back down. There's these guys, basically with Uzis, firing the bullets at them. Of course, Harry dispatches them, both of them, afterwards. But before this, before they go the elevator, they call the elevator to go down. These two guys come up to him, and Harry's kind of jumpy. He pulls out his gun on both of them. Turns out they just want autographs. Because he's like, there's your 15 minutes of fame. It's like, I'm thinking, like, the guy's like, I just peed my pants.
There's a lot of dopey stuff like that in here, where it's not sinister or serious, or we don't feel like this huge government conspiracy like in some of those. There's no thriller in it to me. This is just
unlike the first movie where he was a loose cannon and he was going against the man. Now he's kind of like, he still is kind of, even because he even says like, it's like, Harry, if you don't fall in line with this, he's like, I can always resign. They're like, oh crap, don't resign. We need you for the good press. But after the elevator attack, though, on him and a news reporter, he goes to prison and confronts the guy. And basically, he goes to this guy. The guy is big, tall. Calls him like a gorilla. It's like, this guy is huge, muscular. I'm sure he's probably been in other movies. I'm not sure if he's not real famous, but maybe back then, maybe he was
80s had a lot. I will say this. The 80s had a lot of
bodybuilders.
bodybuilders in it.
Yeah. So I apologize. I mean, maybe this guy's, but I have to look it up. His IMDb. Maybe he's in another movie, but he basically says, "Hey," he's like, "How do you like, get a car and smoke?" It's like, "What do you do? Just come with me and just stand there. Don't do anything, So he brings that guy in, has him stand there at the end of the hallway, walks up to the mob boss, and just calls him. He's like, "You know what?" It's like, just get in his face. He's like, "You guys stop sending your guys off me." He's like, because there's this guy down there. He's like, he's like murders, whatever it is. He's, his poor mother's sick and all. And I've been giving his mother's, his grandmother's, medical treatment stuff and all. I've been paying for his stuff, It's like, and if I die, it's like, he's gonna come after you. It's like, he's like, so you're the mailman. It's like, it's like you better. He's getting the notes to you, and then you send to him. So if he stops, yeah. And he talks about how's that guy. You see him over there? He's like, yeah, look at him. He's like, he's a gorilla. Look, he killed a guy with his bare teeth, ripped his neck out and everything. And I'm thinking he's just really talking this guy up. This mob boss is a complete idiot, That's part of the joke, I guess, for most all these guys. They're just completely idiots. They're weasels, but somehow in power. But anyway, so he does this, and then the guy looks down, and then he's kind of gulping, So he goes down to the gorilla looking muscular dude, and tells me, "Hey, just to let you know, see that asshole down there? He says anybody who smokes a pack a day or more than a pack a day is a dumbass."
You know who the muscle looks like?
I
I wrote down here a really jacked up Jason Momoa.
thought it was Oates. Jacked up Oates. No,
it's a good scene because he gets information from the mob boss by outsmarting and using this other guy, and he plays them both off each other.
It plays off. It's not as a one and done thing. It comes back later on because he's being tailed in this. He's going for a jog. He sees his guys. He can see him and the partner running, and the guy decides to go home because he's tired because he's not as manly as Clint Eastwood. He has to leave. so it sets up Clint Eastwood being, sees a car watching him. And my first thing is like, is this a cops? Are the cops on watching him because they know he's on the Deadpool list? Maybe because he doesn't want protection, but maybe
this will be the foot chase scene.
Yeah, this is the foot chase scene. They go into, he runs over into the alleyway. They pull their car up, and they're like, "Do you see where he goes?" He comes up behind them and just punches it, throws one guy's head through the back window. I'm thinking, oof, that's gotta hurt, if he's not dead, cut up.
Well, not in the 80s when you have glass, because
this is the TJ Hooker scene.
Exactly. No, that's a good call.
Yeah. So the guy
gets. He would have more blood though.
Yeah. The guy gets roughed up, and then he goes to punch the other guy again. He's like, "Oh, wait." He's like, it's like, "Yeah, we work for whatever the mob boss, but we're not here to kill you. We're here to use your protection. We're your bodyguards." So it comes back to say that he really did scare the crap out of the mob boss. So.
Well, there's another goofy scene that's kind of related to their fitness here because
the
80s had this big fitness craze to it.
Oh yeah,
jogging,
the weird fitness center.
Well, it's where they're working out. So
he's
in there with his partner, and what's interesting is his partner is, like I say, he's Asian. He's not nearly as tall or as big, but we saw him use his martial arts skills taking somebody out. It's like, oh boy. So they're talking. I like scenes that are in workout facilities when people are talking or when you're doing something, like cooking something or lighting a cigarette. I always like the physical thing going on while dialogue is happening, not walking down on.
So he's spotting him because the other guy, the short Asian guy, is basically bench pressing. And
he's incline pressing 135, which at his size is somewhat reasonable.
Yeah.
And the thing with Clint Eastwood, though, at this time being in his 50s, he was on like Muscle and Fitness and some other magazines covers because he was known for being a fitness guy. Well, everyone thinks about Bruce Lee in the 70s and the martial arts since then. But the whole thing is that there was a certain badge of fitness, and all this whole bodybuilding has always been around, but it really was at its peak in the 70s and started to tail off in the 80s. And in the 80s, you had like Tom Platz and a few other big names. Lou Ferrigno, who was the original Incredible Hulk,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Who drifted on. Like I say, you think of the Conan film, you think of all these big guys. These are the kinds of athletes that you would see in bodybuilding and
magazines and all that.
Yeah, not smaller guys today, and then like in professional wrestling. So that's
Yeah.
why they had the big guy earlier. But then you also had Clint Eastwood here, and Clint Eastwood is weird to me because some people, when you look at him, they say he's 6'3", 6'4", which is a tall motherfucker. But in here, the way he's got his shirts, he looks thick. But he's got this tall, lanky build, so he always looks skinny and scrawny sometimes. And I don't mean that in a negative
He
way.
looks like a guy. He's basically constantly. He's in good shape. He probably runs a lot. Works out, and that's it.
Yeah, and standing next to this guy, I don't know how tall he is. But oh, wow, what
he's
a
Jackie
difference
Chan
here.
height, pretty much. I think that's what it is. Or Jet Li
Jackie
height.
Chan's 5'8", 5'9", maybe. So
Well,
Clint Eastwood, even if he's only 6'1", 6'2", looks great physically.
I thought he was like almost 6'5", almost.
Who?
Clint Eastwood? Clint? Is he only 6'2"?
6'3", 6'4", but see, announced height is not the same thing as real height. So
Yeah,
if somebody's 6 foot, they're really 5'9", 5'10". That's 6 foot in like lifts.
Well, regardless of this guy, and that's the thing I kept thinking about this movie is like, wow, they could have got Jackie Chan, but they didn't.
Well, I'm kind of glad they didn't actually. Yeah. But that's me. No, but it's a goofy scene because the guy's talking to him and they're working out clues and he needs a spot, but Harry's actually smiling watching some chick do her workout stuff in 80s clothes. I'm like, again, it's a goofy movie.
Yep. And I like that the guy's struggling and he's like, oh yeah. I was like, I'll catch you later, says the girl. He wants to like, hey, help the guy.
Yeah. But there's some minor things that happen here, but really I think getting towards the end, the big thing, and I'll hand it over to you, is they're being tailed, him and his partner, in Harry's car, and this guy we've seen has, well, it's the car chase scene. So let me just hand it to you so you can describe it.
Well, I wanted to go back and talk about the actual partner, more about him, because there's some more goofy stuff, but his when he first meets Harry, the guy, the lieutenant that's above him, basically says like, oh, it's like, yeah, it's good. It's a good look to have a Chinese person on the as your partner. It's good PR.
He said Asian American, actually.
Did he say Asian American? I thought he said Chinese.
I wrote down Asian American. I go, this is the earliest I remember them hyphenating something.
No, I'll have to go back and look. I'm pretty sure he's a Chinese, but maybe you're right. I don't know. Regardless of the point, or maybe it was Callahan that said Chinese later on in the film. Anyway, so he basically tells him he's like in because the guy gets hired and he's like, well, you consider asking him, it's like what he thinks, he's like, considering that everyone who's been my partner has died the past, it's like, and the guy's like kind of gulping. He's like, so you basically say, hey, if you're gonna ride with me, you might as well have a good basically bulletproof vest. So later on, when he does stop the bank robbery scene, or not the bank robbery, but the restaurant robbery scene, the one guy gets away. He does a little kung fu style karate, takes out the guy, and then you see on his chest, there's tattoos. He said, my grandfather painted all these these good luck tattoos, things on my back and my front and stuff, It's like, I got one to honor the old guy. He's like, yeah, it's this ward off evil and all stuff. Later on, they're in this scene. We're gonna get the scene here now, where they're coming out, and then they get in the car, and then he sees before he gets in the car, he sees his kids cross the street, and they got this remote control car, and he's like, because he found a wheel, one of the victims, where the car was blown up when there was something. He found a toy wheel. He put two together, and then he gets in this car, and he sees this little black Corvette, remote control car. It's sweet. I want one. And
shit moment for him.
Yeah, he's like, oh my gosh, I know what it is. It's like he quick pulls away, he backs up, gets ready, because what happens, it drives underneath this car at the stoplight, and then he sees it. He quick backs up, he goes past the guy in the car. Now I gotta say, the guy who's driving the car and chasing him, and he's also steering the remote control car, he's got it attached to the dash where the radio part is, and he's just driving one hand. Yeah, I gotta give this guy props, man. That he's able to drive like this, doing a car chase, and he able to have the remote control car still driving straight, not without hitting a curb. The thing's doing jumps, it's running through on the sidewalk. People are freaking out, running away. My thing is, people would just stand there and hit their leg.
I know.
It's just so fake. That's what. And then
just a great 5-minute scene here.
It is though. And that's I forgot it was in here, and this is what really I was kind of falling asleep a little bit at, because there's only a few scenes here that it kind of woke me up. But this was the big thing. I was like, oh my gosh, now this movie. I knew it was something, because I've seen it in the Batman animated series cartoon, but I knew it was in a movie, and I forgot it was this movie. And just they're driving through, going down, and this is San Francisco. We've always seen that where the people are driving and they go over the the
Yep.
hill, and it comes down. I
Uh-huh.
think those Bullets was the first one to do it with the Mustang and the Dodge
Yeah. Yeah.
Challenger.
It's a famous scene for
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So when I see this, you see Callahan's car goes over. He's got like forget what it's a Plymouth or whatever, or Buick, whatever, goes over, and you see how it bounces and stuff. I'm thinking, like, how many cars did they destroy? As I always love that when they have the car chase, like the Dukes of Hazzard, they destroyed so many cars, axle stuff, just doing the jumps.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine how many cars they destroyed filming these scenes, going down the hills and jumping over. But you see, after Callahan's car goes, you see the little black Corvette goes, phew, jumps to get some air, then lands down. I'm thinking the whole time, I'm thinking, there's a bomb in this thing. How the heck is this thing not exploding by hitting the ground every single time? I mean, I'm just suspending belief in here. Logic.
That's 80s in a nutshell, right there.
I love it though.
In the 80s film.
This would be an 18th scene.
Exactly.
So I'm loving this, and as they're chasing, going through, and like here's finally they get cornered, and like they get this abandoned little area, and they're stuck in the alleyway, and all of a sudden you see like the Corvette, like it first hit a curb, and then it quick go back up, and then you see it revs, and it's popping a wheelie as it's going across the pavement. I'm thinking, like, man, are they trying to sell the car or something? What are they trying to sell in this movie? Because I want one of those cars. That's like, give me an RC control card. But at the end, yeah, they're backed up, and because Callahan he's stuck in the alley, backed away. He's got his headlights facing towards it. They open an alley. The guy stops there. He drives the car in, and Callahan's like, as soon as the little car goes under, he revs it and tries to peel away, but doesn't make it. The car blows up. His partner is alive. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this gonna die? Because he was holding his chest.
Yeah.
And you see the next scene in the doctor in the hospital, he's like, yeah, your partner he's lucky, he survived. He had the bulletproof cover vest in his leg. He's like, he starts turning, and Clint Eastwood kind of looks like he's like, grandfather else told me to take people's advice to heart. It's like,
yeah, there's some good lines in here, like the obvious
jokes,
line is he says, everyone's got, everyone's got.
I love they're not throwaway jokes though, because they actually do continue on in the movie. Yeah. It's not just like a one liner, that's it, and then that's like, oh, okay, yeah.
He says swell a couple times like he has in all the other movies. So there's all these little things, to your point, that if you've watched all the movies up to now, they're being fit in there at the right times, because you're right, it totally makes sense. Okay, here they're giving somebody almost as much screen time as they did in, was it the second or third one, when he has the female Tyne Daly as an assistant. This guy doesn't die, and it's like, wow, someone's going to get to live. It must be an 80s film. And he's got the tattoos because his father knew that he was going to be with him. So it is kind of funny in a way, and it works. It does, because it leaves him by himself, which is what we needed to take on the bad guy.
So after they've seen this movie, and we finally get to the end, and it's revealed who the killer is, because what's her name gets called, promised interview. It turns out it's not the guy she was supposed to be interviewing. It's actually the killer. And the person's apparently is someone that he's schizophrenia, or just because he's obsessed with this, and he blames so and so for bringing his nightmares to life.
Throwaway 80s.
Yeah. Anyway, it's basically no different than like the guy in the Chuck Norris movie, the guy in the theater. They got the big brute trying to kill people. Yeah. Yes. So it's a throwaway villain character. So and they're actually on the set for the, it's called Hell Movie, or was it called Satan's Hotel?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're on the set there, and basically what happens is Harry comes in, and just and the guy's got the knife to the news reporter's neck, and he tells Harry, throw your gun away. So before Harry does, he goes behind him, so closes the door, locks it. He's like, what are you doing? You locked yourself in. He's like, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and he tosses the gun on the ground, but the news reporter, she basically manages to get away, runs, and then Harry finds her, and they do a cat and mouse thing, turning on things that distract, distractions. The guy's firing the bullets. He's got Harry's revolver, fires 6 shots, and then finally he chases him out to the boat scene, and before we saw the harpoon, and the director's complaining about it. It's like, it's like, you're supposed to have this and so or whatever. And so Harry, the guy, you see all the smog stuff around the pier, and all of a sudden you see like Harry comes up and he's like, you fired all your bullets. He's like, and the guy's kind of like, what? He's down there. And he's like, but that's all right. And it's like, and I forgot do you remember what the line he says? There's a little jib he does that says,
you mean right when he's finishing off the bad guy?
He's gonna use the harpoon gun. He's the big gun. He's like.
So when we were talking about lines in this movie, he's said a lot of different things. He said swell. Yeah. He said different things here too. The opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one. It was a real famous one here. But when he was during the Chinatown scene, he goes, hey, and the guy turns around and the guy's getting ready to shoot him, and he goes, you forgot your fortune cookie. And he's like, you want to know what it reads? And it's, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, you see, because he's got the gun on one hand, he's got the left hand just sticking out, and he's just kind of looking at it. He cracks open, does it one-handed.
But here, no, here at the end, when he's got the harpoon, which is like 3-4 feet tall,
it's
and
a huge freaking
thing. You're shit out of luck. Boom, the guy gets impaled, harpooned through a door, which again, the momentum thing, it's completely 80s, and
and that's kind of, he goes over there and he talks to the guy says, the cop says, oh, she's fine, she's just kind of in shock, whatever, and then it just cuts to the filming out of the location, the helicopter shot.
Well, this doc was I think the same shot as the last movie, or when we talked about, what was it, Play Misty for Me here on the Xtreme Movie Show recently. Check that one out. There's the scene at the end where he's got the silhouette from the back, with his gun on the pier. This looks like almost the same type of shot, because Fog Machines is also big in the 80s, and what you just said was also big in the 80s, and that's when you roll the end credits, which happens immediately when somebody gets shot, a la 10 to Midnight Charles Bronson, which I thought we had reviewed, but apparently we'll need to review it here soon.
But the cops
with the pull away shot with music playing, with them just standing there on the pier.
Yeah, the paramedics there, and the cops and stuff. It's kind of that's Die Hard 2.
Again, this movie's 90 minutes. It's short by Dirty Harry standards. It's an action film. I wouldn't even call it a thriller, because there's really nothing terrifying in here or sinister.
No.
The coolest thing is the car chase scene. I have to give it props for that, because they just didn't do it for a minute or two. They said, you know what, we're going for it, and they spent a good 5 minutes on it, and I like that, because I always said I love a foot chase and I love seeing the city, and you do with the car chase.
Do you know what this was? This was a serious rush house, or rush hour.
Oh God.
No, seriously, this would Rush Hour be if it was made seriously without the bad jokes.
Well, this movie is like a comedy to me. It's very lighthearted. So in that way,
it's not like it has some comedy in it, but it's still serious though. It
doesn't feel like a Dirty Harry movie to me, though.
Well, the Dirty Harry movie is always gonna be like the first movie. That's the Dirty Harry movie. The rest of it is kind of like sequels, and then they started getting a little more cheesy. But after watching this film, wow, mainly because for a few scenes in here, it moved up a rank in my spot as far as movies. It did. It's no longer the last one. I believe Sudden Impact is the last one now for me.
It might be. I said Misty, but I think I meant Sudden Impact.
Yeah, because I still go with the first Dirty Harry, 71. Yeah. And then I go with, Magnum Force, because that's still good. Enforcer is, it's what it is. The fourth one with the girl, and what's her name? I forgot. The one is always like Sandra Locke. It's kind of boring, But so I moved the Deadpool up, so it's in the 4th place now.
It's hard to rank these, I think, because I think the first two are obviously extremely high quality, but the second one has some differences with the music and stuff. So I think obviously most people would say 1 is probably the best. I think 3 is solid. Deadpool's entertaining, but again, part of me asks, if you could take one film out of all these and it wouldn't take away from something that makes a Dirty Harry film, what would it be? And I go, well, the first one sets the tone. The third one's got the female partner, and it's a very feminist movie. This movie's not really that feminist, even for the 80s, believe it or not.
The fourth one, I said, the fourth one was really boring to me.
Some people thought that. Some people blamed her.
That's why this one was this one being it's not completely serious, but it's also not completely comedy. There's a few things in here different. The one-liners he's been doing since the second movie or third movie?
The first, yeah, for almost
Yeah,
20 years.
but like it's the humor's changed a little bit though since the first one. It's less slurring. Remember the first one was all the first one had slurs in
Yes,
it. They got rid
yes,
of that. They went more
yes.
PG.
This is a more PC, family-friendly type movie that you could take and see because everybody in the 80s that would see tons of explosions and this kind of nonsense and drugs, it didn't phase them. It wasn't shocking. It had that 80s over-the-top uh, effect that you would see from lots of TV shows and everything else there. By now, it's like you're desensitized to all that. So him being really brutal and violent where you could really feel in those early films, you don't get that in here. Like I say, his gun sounds wimpy. There's no real talk about the vigilante thing that they played up in the first few. Nothing like that at all in here. This is just escapism, mild action with some slight comedy. It's a buddy cop film. I guess in a way it feels more like that to me. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's entertaining. It's fun, but it's again, it's hard to rank, but overall, I enjoyed the film, and if people haven't seen it, it's one to check out. I would suggest go in order. It makes a lot more sense, and it might add a little bit more value to the enjoyment you get out of watching these, and give it a critical eye if that's something that you do. But overall, I think it's a decent film, and it's more entertaining than at least the fourth one. I will give you that, even though that one kind of felt dark.
I'll just say this is probably his first partner, and then didn't go on with a bang.
Yeah, yeah.
The other one, and the third one, the mailbox bomb, man, he's dead, and this one's actually survived the bomb.
Yeah, it's sanitized. It's that 80s sanitizing film.
It's not really a buddy's cop because it's mainly just Clint Eastwood. The other guy shows up for a little bit and he's gone.
I know. It's tough.
It's not like you're getting Riggs and Murtaugh. That's more a buddy cop to this. This is kind of like somewhat going into that direction. He's kind of like this there to add a little bit more to Clint Eastwood's character.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Deadpool 1988. Clint Eastwood, his fifth film in this series. It is fun. It's worth checking out, definitely, as are all the other films and all our reviews of each individual ones there. So tune in live Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be doing a film that we have up on the community poll that people are currently voting on now. Which 80s canon classic should we do now? And there's some wonderful selections up there, so I encourage you to check that out.
I will not influence the vote at all whatsoever, even though Ninja 3 has been told to be the best movie ever on that list.
Well, we did mention before that the 90s or the 80s been a decade of ninja. Canon really popularized that. But if you go to our community tab and you take a look at the current poll, we have 4 outstanding canon films that epitomized the 80s.
They're all good. I still haven't seen Cyborg. It'd be a first watch for me.
Right. Ninja 3, The Domination, which we've done the first 2 movies, and the second one, there's Enter the Ninja with Franco Nero, which is fantastic.
Yep.
And then it gets even better with Enter the Ninja with Shoko Sugi, which is the best ninja movie of all time. Cyborg with JCVD, which you said you haven't seen. Then, of course, Death Wish 2, and as opposed to Death Wish 1, which is made not by Canon.
Still a good movie.
Bronson. They're all phenomenal. But right now, Death Wish has a slight lead over Ninja 3, and we're breaking a Cyborg have yet to get. I can
see why, but Death Wish 2, I just remind people that is a movie that has stuff in there that would never fly in a movie today.
Yeah,
because of what happens to somebody.
Well, we might be doing Michael Douglas before that, and then we have a canon classic, so we've got several things coming up too. Ghost in the Darkness is proving to be a very popular selection. We just recently did Falling Down, so take a look at that. Let us know if there's other films you'd like us to review here on the Extreme Movie Show. For RDV and for everybody involved here, I'm your host, Rob. Thanks for listening. Thanks for getting the word out about us. Have a good night, and as always, stay extreme.
Later, guys.